Yo, what is up, everybody? It's your boy Eddbedhead here with
ML Ultra.
And today we're going to be watching the Mysterious People's Iceberg Explained video by Dan Tavius. So make sure to check out his channel. Link will be in the description below along with this video we're reviewing. Let's get started.
Start now. The Babushka Lady was a woman who was present during the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Her nickname comes from the fact that she resembles a babushka, or an old Russian woman who wears a headscarf. She appeared in many of the photos taken during the Kennedy
Because it looks sick. I don't know. That's funny. Yeah.
assassination. In one of these pictures, she appears to be holding a camera. Now, the weird thing about this woman is that most of the people who witnessed Kennedy's assassination were brought in for questioning to see if they saw who the culprit was. But the Babushka Lady was never officially identified, which is suspicious because if
May, you're an expert. Is this true?
I've never heard of it, actually.
Oh, the Kennedy assassination? You've never heard of the Babushka Lady?
No, I don't look into the background. I look into him.
Into him.
Into JFK.
she was indeed holding a camera and caught something, wouldn't she want the world to know? That's where the conspiracies come in. Some people believe she was taken care of because she caught something on camera that wasn't consistent with the original report that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone shooter. Yasuke, before we get into this guy, let's do a little history.
Why do you say that?
He wasn't the shooter at all.
How do you know?
Because it makes no sense.
Because it makes no sense.
Yeah.
We got only the real facts here.
In the 1500s, the Portuguese arrived in Japan. They had a pretty big influence on the country, and soon after arriving, they began converting the natives to Catholicism. The main group doing this were known as Jesuits, and in 1579, a Jesuit named Alessandro Valignano landed in Japan.
What do you say? Like, that's epic. That's epic.
And accompanied by a slave who would later be called Yasuke. A Japanese feudal lord named Oda Nobunaga?
How do you say it?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
No, but I don't think it would be Obunaha.
Oh, okay.
Took a liking
I think it's Obunaga.
Oh,
to
because you had a G in
Yasuke
it.
and brought him into his service as a soldier. Yasuke was about 6'2", so Nabungo probably saw him and said, "Yo, I need that mother sucker on my team right now," because everyone else around me is like 5'5" on average. It didn't take long for Yasuke to move up
And
the
I think
ladder,
that'd be
and
Yasuke.
eventually
Oh, Yasuke.
Yasuke.
Oh, that's cool. So there was
I mean, I'm only half Japanese, so I don't know a lot, but I don't think he usually would say like Suki, like
Okay.
in Totoro, it's Sasuke, even though it's spelled like similar to that.
Oh, in Naruto as well.
Yeah.
reached the rank of
Sasuke.
samurai, but unfortunately soon after
I
he
didn't know
became a
this legend,
samurai, Nabunga, his lord,
this
was
story.
attacked and forced to commit seppuku. Nobody knows what happened to Yasuke after that, but hey man, that's pretty freaking cool. Black samurai. Oh, also
That's
there's an
pretty awesome.
anime about this guy on Netflix if any of you guys are interested. Pretty sure it's not
Ooh, I gotta add that to my watch list.
historically accurate, but Gregory Rasputin, who hasn't heard of this guy? He has a whole song and multiple
May hasn't heard about him.
Well, not until recently with Fortnite.
Yeah, not until I told you about what
Yeah.
the song was
movies
about.
about him. Rasputin was a Russian mystic who lived in the early 20th century and somehow finagled his way into the good graces of the Russian royal family. Rasputin was an illiterate peasant who apparently knew magic. Not much is known about his early life other than he was married at the age of 18 and had 4 children, who he left behind to go on a pilgrimage. During this pilgrimage to a monastery, he had a religious reawakening and became a preacher. It was said during this time he joined the Klists, which was a religious sect that participated in self-harm and orgies, among others.
I knew about the orgies part, but the self-harm, I did not know about. That's some intense stuff. He's definitely interesting
How are those things not
Person.
considered like sins?
because I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea. I don't understand the intricacies of religion.
Things. Rasputin also had a reputation for having hoes in different area codes. Like, this man was absolutely slanging, allegedly. We don't know how much of that is true and how much of it was pro-imperial Russian propaganda. Anyways, Rasputin began to build a following and had a reputation of being a healer and wise man. Eventually, he made his way to St. Petersburg, where he met Emperor Nicholas and Empress Alexandra. He was brought into the royal palace.
My water smells weird. Not gonna lie. I think I might have been poisoned. I'm not gonna drink this one anymore though. I had to get some water later.
Is that an
This is
old
a
one?
healer for the
Probably.
Emperor's son Alexei, who suffered from hemophilia. And the crazy thing is, he actually
What
made
is
the son
hemophilia?
better. Now, while he was at
Let's look it up. I have no idea what hemophilia is, but apparently he cured him of it. Hemophilia, there it is. Is usually an inherited bleeding disorder in which the blood does not clot properly. I didn't know it was supposed to clot. Oh,
Yeah,
when you
so,
have
like,
a
you don't
cut.
bleed out.
Yeah, okay. Now we know. so his wounds, or his cuts and stuff, wouldn't get covered up.
The emperor went off to fight in World War I, and during this time he had a large amount of influence over Empress Alexandra. A lot of the other nobles didn't like this, so they decided to whack him. Now the circumstances of his death are absolutely nutty. Apparently he ate a whole meal laced with enough cyanide to take down your mom. Then he was shot in the chest, and of course he survived that, but then he was shot in the head where he finally died, because, let's be honest, shot in the head, hard to come back from. Tank Man. In 1989, a student-led protest took place in an area of Beijing known as Tiananmen
I've seen this
Square.
picture.
These protests called for free speech, free press, and an end to the one-party system. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with China at all, but they don't like that shit too much. After a few weeks of protests, the Chinese Communist Party instated martial law. The army then began to fire on anyone who continued to protest. Jeez. Hundreds of protesters as well as innocent bystanders were killed. This would come to be known as the Tiananmen Square Massacre. The following day, a man carrying groceries stood in front of a line of tanks headed to Beijing, presumably to commit more acts of violence. He then climbed on top of a tank and spoke to the soldiers inside before he was carried off by some random people. I gotta say, this guy has some traumatic...
I'm surprised they didn't run him over.
Yeah, it seems like he was being innocent. Not completely innocent, but like they didn't do anything. They just carried him away. Like, just go. But everyone else has to die.
Well, we don't know what happened to him because we don't know who the guy is.
That's
so
true.
Maybe they did whack him or something. They did kill him or something.
And his balls. Like, this guy has balls spelled B-A-W-L-Z, bro. Now, nobody knows what happened to this man, if he was killed, imprisoned, or just went on living a normal life, but I somehow doubt the last option. D.B. Cooper. It's November 24th, 1971.
Oh, do you know about this one?
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy who hijacked the plane.
Oh, yeah.
A middle-aged man in a business suit carrying a black leather briefcase hops on a one-way flight from Portland to Seattle. He orders a bourbon and soda, and after he finishes it, he calls the flight attendant over and hands her a note. She's probably thinking, oh great, another frickin' schmuck trying to join the Mile High Club. But just as she finished her thought, he leans in and whispers to her,
"You might want to take a look at that note. I have a bomb."
The note
Loki was the DB Cooper? I didn't even know they made a movie with him as the guy. What's the actor's name?
Tom Hiddleston.
Tom Hiddleston, D.B. Cooper. They made a movie about this?
Is Tom Hiddleston D.B. Cooper?
It's a really weird Mad Men references. What do they mean? Oh, because he looks like him? Based on the description? Yo, that's crazy. We just went down a rabbit hole.
I think it says it was in Loki. I think it was just like a...
Oh, Loki trailer.
I don't know.
What? So one of the Lokis was D.B. Cooper. I don't remember this scene from the show.
Neither do I.
Unless I must have just not been paying attention during this part. It's crazy. I'd like to believe that's how it went.
Besides Cooper, and she does. He then opens the briefcase and shows her the bomb. She shits her pants, and then he tells her his demands. $200,000 cash and 4 parachutes. None of the passengers were informed of what was going on.
Where would they even have that money?
I don't know.
The plane.
Maybe they just gather it from everybody's pockets.
FBI gave Cooper his money and
Oh, because the FBI gave him all that stuff because he was holding them hostage, I guess.
So he didn't jump out of the plane and just disappear?
Well, I think what they're saying is I think how the story goes, we can look it up, but he basically hijacked the plane, demanded the money. Then when they landed, he held them hostage until he got the money. Then he let them go except for the pilots.
Oh, so they went back up?
Yeah, so that he could get away. I think that's how it went. We can double check the story, though. I don't know if I can find it, though, from the beginning. Okay, so on Thanksgiving Eve, used the cash to purchase a one-way ticket. Cooper handed the note. Yep. So we know that.
Yeah, it says passengers released and then back in the air.
Okay, yeah. So he released them after he got his ransom. And then he's like, I'm out of here. Peace out. And they also gave him a parachute because that's what he demanded.
He then demanded that the pilot fly him to Mexico City, which he did. But about 30 minutes into the flight, Cooper jumped out of the plane, never to be seen again. This is truly the most devious lick in history. Buckethead is a guitarist who performs.
What do you think happened?
He probably just got away and
with all the money, though?
Life.
That's crazy.
Well, there's no way to track him, I don't think.
They got the sketch. It could have been Loki. It could have been Loki the whole time.
mask and a KFC bucket on his head. If you're not into rock music, you've probably never heard of this guy, but make no mistake, this man is an absolute legend. He has over 300 albums, bro. 300.
What?
And he's performed with a ton of popular musicians and was even a member of Guns N' Roses for 4 years. Now, since he performs Daft Punk style, hiding his face and identity, almost nothing is known about him until 2017, of course, where he did a podcast out of character talking about his life. Techno Viking. This is a viral...
Wait, so then who is it? Is it solved?
Well, I guess so. He revealed it on the podcast, so we probably just have to look it up ourselves.
Oh, man. I didn't even catch what the name of the character
video
was.
From the 2000 Fuck Parade in Berlin. Fuck Parade was an annual summer techno music event that also denounced mainstream pop culture. Now, at this particular event, you see a guy shoving a blue-haired woman before being grabbed and presumably given a stern talking to by some Thor-looking motherfucker. The man, known as Techno Viking, then walks down the street where he's weirdly handed an upside-down water bottle by some other dude before he proceeds to dance like an absolute madman.
I just think they're on drugs.
Yeah, well, I think it looked staged.
It's staged or on drugs, or maybe both. Because that's just too much weird stuff going on for it to be a real
situation. Went absolutely viral back in 2006 when it was uploaded to YouTube, currently sitting at 23 million views. The actual Techno Viking sued the guy who filmed this video because he didn't want his likeness to be public.
What?
And he won. The cameraman was ordered by a judge to pay 13,000 euros in damages.
But then how are we watching the video? Unless we're going to get
sued. Did you see his caption at the top?
No, what did it say?
It said, or 15,000 in real money.
In a society where everyone's addicted to clout and would sell their nipples for 5 minutes as fame, it's kind of interesting and also admirable that this guy didn't just come out and say, hey, that is me, I am the Techno Viking, and start making merch and all this other bullshit. So, shout out to him. Aleister Crowley, known as the wickedest man in the world. Aleister Crowley was an English occultist, magician, poet, painter, and just all-around creepy guy.
So he
attended Cambridge University in 1895, where he engaged in all sorts of degenerate behavior, including smoking, whacking off, and lying with streetwalkers. After a few years, he gave up on university and joined the Golden Dawn, a secret society known for occult rituals.
I think I've seen these hats before, but I don't remember from where.
Illuminati.
Well, yeah, I get that that's what the little conspiracy is supposed to be, but I meant that this cult's hats. I don't know.
Black magic shit. He was very unpopular in this group, being described by the other members as weird and smelly. I might have paraphrased that a little bit, but you get the idea. Oh, he also claimed to have been a Freemason. Anyways, after a failed takeover of the Golden Dawn...
They're the Illuminati like you were talking about. Actually, I don't really know if they're a legit organization or the Illuminati. Freemason or Masonry refers to fraternal organizations that trace their origins to local guilds of stonemasons that, from the end of the 13th century, regulated the qualifications of stonemasons and their interaction with authorities and clients. Sounds very...
I still don't know.
Yeah, I don't get it. The teachings and principles of Fraternal Order of Free and Accepted Masons, the largest worldwide secret society. It sounds so confusing. We're going to do a deep dive on that later on.
Crowley started traveling the world and eventually arrived in Egypt. While there, he claimed that Egyptian gods spoke to him and told him he would be their prophet. It was at this point that Crowley created his very own cult known as Thelema. During World War I, Crowley wrote pro-German propaganda in order to try and keep the United States from getting involved in the war. I don't know why though, I mean it doesn't really explain his motives or anything. But this made him very unpopular in England, so he couldn't go back, like he was banned from England. Instead, he went to France and set up his cult headquarters in an abandoned building where he started to gain many followers. During his time in Thelema Abbey, as he called it, he continued to engage in even more depraved behavior that I'm not even going to mention because I like being monetized. Apparently, Thelema is still practiced by a small amount of people today, and Alistair Crowley was so infamous back in the day that he was featured on the Beatles album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
I didn't know that.
Zodiac Killer was a...
Let's look it up. Thelema. The Thelema group. That's probably not what they're talking about. Thelema cults, maybe?
I think so. It says it's since 1975.
No, but the dude was around since World War I. Thelema cult?
Yeah, it's that one. Aleister Crowley.
So spooky looking. We got to do a deep dive on this later on, too.
Serial killer active in Northern California in the late 1960s.
Who is it?
He's confirmed to have whacked 5
I don't remember
people,
his name, but
claims that
just
the actual number is 37.
He looks like a normal guy.
Many cold cases
normal
were
white
also
guy.
attributed.
Was it the guy from the movie?
No.
Oh, man. No,
He's
but
dead
I mean,
now.
I mean the character in the Zodiac movie.
I don't remember.
The guy that they suspected with the watch.
I don't think so.
Oh, man.
To him. He was known for sending taunting letters to local newspapers, which were often coded and had to be deciphered. In the first letter he sent, he claimed he was collecting souls for the afterlife. This is the only known sketch of the man who was described by one of the victims who survived. Finding the true identity of the Zodiac...
Why they sketch it like that? Like his glasses are not even straight. Like this one's a little narrower. There's some interesting sketches.
Made even harder by numerous copycat killers and other random people sending letters to newspapers claiming to be him. Now, this mother sucker never got caught, so he's potentially still out there. Like, he could be a senator in Texas for all we know. Jack the Ripper was a serial killer active in London in 1988. Wait, no. 1888.
I was about to say.
He was known to target ladies of the night who worked in the slums of London's East End. Now, multiple ladies of the night were whacked within quick succession of each other, and during this time, multiple letters were sent to news outlets claiming to be the killer. One in particular was signed as Jack the Ripper, but that's now thought to be a hoax, but somehow the name stuck because, you know, it's catchy. There are 5 total whackings that are all but confirmed to be connected to one guy, and 6 more that are not 100%, but they're still pretty sure. While he was active, London went to an absolute panic. People were afraid to go outside, and a committee was formed to patrol the streets at night to try to catch the maniac. He was never caught, though. The man in the iron...
So who was it, May?
I don't know.
You don't know this one?
There's a killer that I can't think of the name now, of course. But I'm pretty sure he was from the U.S., and people suspect that it's the same. Yeah, it's the same guy because the killing stopped here, and then it started there, and it was similar.
Oh, okay. So he just went abroad. He's like, they'll never catch me if I go to London. I mean, it kind of worked for him.
Yeah.
He never got caught.
But also, I don't get why people... So he was talking about the letters and people claiming to be him. I don't get why people always do that in crime.
They want a little clout, I guess.
Yeah, but why do you want to admit to doing something that's going to put you in prison? Or
people do crazy things. I don't know. Yeah, I can't justify what they do. Just dummies, I guess.
Mask. You may have heard of him from the not-so-good movie starring Leonardo DiCaprio. He was a prisoner who was arrested...
Did you watch this one?
No, I didn't. I've never heard of it.
Because you're a Leo fan. And I've never watched that movie either.
France in 1670 was held in multiple French prisons for 34 years. The prisoner was never identified because of a velvet face mask covering his face. It actually was an iron, but the man in the velvet mask sounds kind of stupid. Now, nobody knows who this guy was, but it's generally speculated that he was an important person. Otherwise, the French would have just cut his head off, because you know how much they love doing that.
You want to know something I learned about guillotines?
What? Guillotines?
People used to fight over being the first one to be killed.
Why?
Because over time, after many uses, the blade will dull.
Oh, so it'll take more than one?
Yeah, so if you're like the last one, they're going to keep putting it on your head until you're dead.
That sounds crazy. Is it true that you can still say things when your head's chopped off?
I think there was a study about it.
Or that your body still moves around?
Yeah, it's like you still have some consciousness, like you can recognize.
Or you're like, oh shoot, my head fell off. That's freaking epic. My body looks epic from here. I look so tall from this ground that I just rolled onto.
Then it include a relative of the King of France, an important French general, an Italian diplomat, and even the King of England's son, but it's still not known for sure. Spring-Heeled Jack. I talked about this fella on my Cryptids Iceberg, so I'm just going to play a clip from that because I'm a lazy sack of shit. Spring-Heeled Jack is a humanoid cryptid in English folklore who was apparently amazing at gymnastics. Jack was popping off in 1800s.
He looks like an off-brand Batman, the Great Value Batman costume.
The first sighting of him being recorded in 1837 by a man who claims the mysterious figure jumped over a high railing and landed right in front of him before running off. The most well-known incidents involving Jack were the attacks of 2 teenage girls, Lucy Scales and Jane Alsop. These attacks were widely reported in British newspapers and helped bring Spring-Heeled Jack into popular culture. There were many more sightings of Jack throughout the 19th century, all the way up to 1904, where the last recorded sighting of him happened. Berserker of Stamford Bridge.
They just cut off mid-sentence. Yeah. My videos do that too sometimes, though.
1966, the King of England, Harold Godwinson, was awaiting an invasion from the Normans of France led by William the Bastard. But to his surprise, as he was waiting for William, the Viking King of Norway invaded northern England along with Harold's brother Tostig Godwinson. Now, the Norwegians were not expecting any resistance because they thought Harold was preoccupied in the south, but they were wrong. That motherfucker went straight up north, and they got absolutely wrecked by the English. The Norwegian Vikings were pushed back to Stamford Bridge. Now, the English tried to cross the bridge, probably to get to the other side, but they were being held off by one guy with a huge axe.
Oh, I've heard about
unnamed
this.
Viking berserker is said to have whacked 40 of Harold's men before getting skewered with a spear. Eventually, the British did cross the bridge and wipe out the Vikings, but it took a lot longer than it should have, just because this one mother sucker with balls of brass. Anyways, this little detour ensured the Norman conquest of England, and the Norman king went from being William the Bastard to William the Conqueror. Now that's a glow up if I've ever heard one. Fulcanelli sounds like a fucking pasta dish, but it's not. Fulcanelli was an alchemist and author in the early 20th century. Nobody knows this guy's real identity, but apparently he had students who he taught the craft of alchemy. One of these students, named Eugene Concellier, apparently turned lead into gold. Somehow this claim isn't confirmed, which is weird because you'd think that was a pretty sick party trick. Agent 355 was the codename of a female spy active during the American Revolution. She was a member of a secret spy ring known as Culper Ring. Many people believe that it was actually 355 who discovered Benedict Arnold was a traitor, but unfortunately not much else is known about her.
Can you look up the 355 real quick?
Yeah.
Isn't there a new movie about that?
Agent 355? Movie? Oh,
Yeah.
is it this?
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at images here real quick. The 355.
Yeah, this movie just came out this year.
Is it good? Let's check.
I didn't see it, but that's Norman Reedus' girlfriend.
Let's check the
Diane Kruger.
Let's check the IMDb page. Doesn't look like it was very well received. Rotten Tomatoes, maybe? Ooh, does not look good on the Rotten Tomatoes either. Well, actually, the audience
is high.
Yeah, this is the only website it's high on, though, for the audience. Everyone else is like, this is a movie kind of whack. All right, well, is it even about the same thing, or is it just its own thing? American spy film? Okay, I guess it is about spies.
Tour, aka Time Traveler _0, was the name of an alleged time traveler from the year 2036. He was active on multiple online forums from 2000 to 2001. During this time, he claimed to be a soldier that traveled back in time to visit his family. He described in detail the time machine that he used and made many predictions of what would happen in the future. For example, he said that there would be a large amount of civil unrest starting in 2005 due to the 2005 presidential election. This unrest would continue for years until an all-out civil war would break out in 2008 and wouldn't end until 2015. As a result of this war, the United States would splinter into 5 different countries. Immediately
Facts,
after
all of this happened. This is the world we're living in right now.
the Civil War, World War III would break out when the Russians nuked Jacksonville and Washington, D.C. After this, Omaha, Nebraska would be the new U.S. capital. Now, this is the point where I knew this guy was full of shit, because there ain't no reality where Omaha, Nebraska is the capital of the United States. Come on.
That is a really weird and random spot to pick for the new capital. But I guess where it is now kind of
predictions is Stephen A. Smith. William Shakespeare. You know him, you love him, you were forced to read his books in high school. Bill Shakespeare put out some absolute bangers back in the day, bro. Romeo and Juliet, Othello, King Lear, Graduation. Oh wait, no, that last one was Kanye West. Never mind. This guy had such a massive impact on literature.
Yeah, Kanye's canceled, man. Well, yeah. I mean, he's still got a really large internet following.
We can't even start talking about it. I'll get mad.
This man invented 300 words that we still use today. He invented the word alligator, bro.
What?
I rest my case.
Lies.
Now, there's a lot of mystery.
Now I gotta look it up. It's gonna make me go down this rabbit hole too. Did William Shakespeare...
Whoa. It said, did William Shakespeare go to space?
Did he? Invent alligator. Invented the word alligator? What?
They were originally alligatos.
Oh, okay. So he just modified it. I think he also made swag. The word swagger, popular through rap musicians, was first used by Henry in The Midsummer's Dream, though Shakespeare didn't invent the word swag. Okay, I thought he did.
Just Henry.
History surrounding Shakespeare's life.
Henry
Historians aren't
Henry
100%
V.
sure of most of the details.
He's better than Henry IV, Henry V, the squeakquel.
Of his life. They don't even know his exact date of birth. And from 1585 to 1592, he's completely missing from the history books. This was called the Shakespeare Dark Age. No one knows what he was doing during this period. Many people think this was on purpose because Shakespeare was a Catholic sympathizer, which was a big no-no in England at the time. So he had to lay as low as possible. The Green Children of Woolpid. In the 12th century, 2 children appeared in the village of Woolpid, England. They looked normal, except for the...
You can't breathe like that into the mic, buddy.
He's just copying.
He's just copying the nose breathing.
Yep.
That's his nose. Kingsley nose break.
Ogres.
Do you have anything to say, Kingsley? My mic can't reach that far.
Here.
What do you have to say about these green ogres, buddy? That's deep. All right.
Their green skin, they spoke an unknown language and only ate fava beans. Gross. The town took care of them and they eventually learned to eat other foods. The boy unfortunately passed away,
I've heard about
lived
the blue
and was
people,
baptized. Eventually
not
the
the
girl
green
learned
ones.
English and stated she
No,
was
not the blue man group. The people with blue skin tone.
St. Martin's Land, which was an underground world inhabited by green people. Now, I know this story's fake because they didn't immediately burn these kids at the stake, which was pretty much the policy at the time if anything was slightly weird about somebody. Like, oh, you wash your ass, you must be a witch, we're burning you at the stake. You use deodorant, burn at the stake. Bro, you can read? Stake. Satoshi Nakamoto.
Didn't they actually not do that often?
What?
Burn people at the stake?
When?
Like with the witch trials and stuff, didn't they actually not do that often?
Depends where you're talking about. Where?
I don't know, like Salem. That's the only one I
guess
know.
in America, yeah, not as much maybe, but in Europe in the medieval times, I think they did.
Bitcoin. You know
Playing
that
with
thing
this
you
like
wish
it's
you
my
bought
hair.
10 years ago when your friend Mike told you about it, but you brushed it off as another bullshit fad, and now Mike lives in a mansion and owns a yacht, and you're still sitting in your room eating ramen and watching iceberg videos on YouTube?
Wow, calling
But
me
yeah,
out.
anyways, nobody knows who the real creator of Bitcoin is, or if it's just one guy or a group of people. There's a ton of speculation, and I've even heard some people say that Vladimir Putin or the Chinese government commissioned the creation of Bitcoin. Kaspar Hauser was a German teenager who claimed to have spent his entire youth locked inside of a dungeon. What is it with Germans and dungeons, man? Anyways, he turned up one day in Nuremberg with a letter addressed to a Captain von Wessenig. The letter stated that the boy was given into the custody of an unknown man who taught him how to read and write, but never let him out of the house. The boy seemed to be intellectually impaired and was immediately imprisoned for being a vagabond, aka a homeless person.
What the heck?
I'm sorry, but
you go to jail for being homeless? That's strats right there. That's some smart strats.
Can you imagine spending your entire life in a cell, being let out, and immediately being put back into a cell? He was eventually let out and put under the care
It's not funny, Kingsley. Stop laughing.
of a few different people. All of his caretakers claimed that he was a compulsive liar and a charlatan. In 1832, Hauser came home with a stab wound in his chest. Apparently, a stranger stabbed him and handed him a note. Hauser would later pass away from the injury. Now, the thing is, Hauser had been in multiple similar scenarios where he was attacked and injured by random people with no other witnesses. There are 2 theories as to why. One, he was part of a noble family, was imprisoned as a child to keep him from challenging the throne. Or 2, he made all that shit up and he stabbed himself for attention, but it was too deep and he ended up whacking himself. The Axeman of New Orleans was a serial killer active in 1918 and 1919 who mainly targeted Italians. Oh, us Italians can never get a fucking break. His main weapon was an axe, hence the name, the Axeman of New Orleans. Now,
that's very creative.
I don't think I've ever heard of this one.
Now, I don't know if this guy was an actual serial killer or just a member of the mafia, because, fun fact, the American mafia actually originated in New Orleans in the late 1860s, so perhaps this guy was whacking people for business reasons. Who knows? The man from...
Why did he get the worst serial killer name? Don't they usually come up with, like, interesting names?
Not really.
Really?
Like Richard Ramirez is just the Night Stalker.
That's better than the Axe.
I don't know. It's just straightforward.
Yeah.
Torrid. So in 1959, a man named John Zagris arrived at customs in Japan with his wife. He presented his passport to the clerk and it was the size of a magazine and had stamps on it from many East Asian countries. The weird thing about his passport, other than the fact that it was massive, is that it was written in an unknown language. The man claimed to be from a country south of Ethiopia named Torrid. Other accounts say that the country is named Negusi Habesi. He also claimed to be both an intelligence officer working for the US as well as an ambassador for his own country. He was arrested and sentenced to 1 year in prison in Japan for forgery. Oh, and I forgot to mention, he also tried to cash a bunch of counterfeit checks. The tale of the man from Torrid has created a lot of speculations about parallel universes and parallel dimensions.
But if they caught him for lying, how is it parallel universes? Unless he just crossed dimensions at the exact wrong moment.
This guy could be from another dimension where this country is a real place. El Dorado. You may know El Dorado as the mythical South American city that's made entirely of gold.
It's also got a cool movie.
What
You gotta
movie?
watch it. El Dorado. El Dorado. The movie.
From the DreamWorks movie. Or maybe you just remember this chick from that movie. Either way,
Wow.
El
Is that
Dorado
you?
was originally
I remember the whole
tribal
movie. They
chief
got a
in
good
Colombia who
soundtrack.
covered himself in gold dust. I don't know how it later became a city, but whatever. John Doe 24, not to be confused with John Doe 23, is the name given to a teenager found by 2 police officers in 1945 while wandering the streets of Jacksonville, Illinois. The boy was deaf and only knew how to write one word, Lewis, which was presumed to be his name. Now, the kid was an anomaly. Nobody could find out any information about him, who his parents were, where he came from, even what his real name was. I mean, probably Lewis though, right? Anyways, his name was legally changed to John Doe Boyd. Really? They couldn't incorporate
Why?
Lewis in there in any way?
Right.
It couldn't be John Doe Lewis? Where are you getting Boyd from? Anyways, he spent the remainder of his life in various Illinois mental health institutions. The
That's
Mad
Yeah, that is pretty sad. And horrible name, too. John Doe is just something you give to somebody when you don't know.
Gasser of Mattoon. So in Mattoon, Illinois, 1944, there was a series of incidents involving gas. And no, this was not Taco Bell related because Taco Bell wasn't invented yet. Multiple residents in the area claimed to have smelled a strange odor in their homes before experiencing weird symptoms, including coughing, vomiting, and even paralysis. During one of these incidents, a man was spotted outside the home of one of the victims of the gas attacks. He was chased by the victim's husband, but never caught. It was speculated that the gasser was using this gas to paralyze his victims so he could rob their houses. More and more reports of these gas attacks kept coming in, and it got to the point where the FBI had to get involved. Now, the weird thing about this whole event is that the FBI claimed it was a case of mass hysteria, since there was zero evidence of any toxic gases being released anywhere. But most of the victims were women, and you know, back in those days, a woman could get stabbed and they would say it was all in her head. Man in...
Or was it secretly the government doing
Yeah, but what about the husband that saw it?
gas experiment? I don't know. Maybe it was secretly the government doing gas experiments.
Probably.
Illuminati music plays in the background.
In the Hole. Man in the Hole is an indigenous Brazilian tribesman who lives in the Amazon rainforest. And when I say tribesman, I'm talking hunter-gatherer, loincloth, no shirt. He's assumed to be the last surviving member of his tribe. The language he speaks and the name of his tribe is unknown. The rest of his tribe was probably wiped out by loggers and ranchers.
Oh,
it's
that's
actually
sad.
really sad. This dude's basically the last survivor of a genocide. Anyways, the name Man in the Hole comes from the deep holes he digs next to his homes. He'll build a home with the hole, he'll abandon it, and then move on and build another one. The government of Brazil has declared the territory he's known to inhabit off limits. Nobody can go in there and disturb him. Count Saint Germain was a European traveler, musician,
Ooh, he was in the show Transylvania, so I actually want to know about this.
linguist, scholar, comedian, and alchemist. The mysterious part about this character is that nobody knows what is true about him and what was false, because he made up all these crazy stories about his life. For example, he claimed to be 500 years old. Even though nobody knew the truth behind his background, it was obvious that he was very wealthy and highly educated. He frequently hung out with royalty and even high-profile celebrities at the time like Voltaire, Casanova, and Horace Walpole, whoever the fuck that is. Now here's a list of his possible origins. Transylvanian priest, German Jew, Spanish Jesuit, the son of an Italian princess and a tax collector, and the list goes on. You can think of him as an 18th century version of the Great Gatsby. Gil Perez.
That's awesome.
In 1593, a Spanish soldier named Gil Perez claimed to have been mysteriously transported from the Philippines to Mexico City in the blink of an eye. He claimed that the Spanish governor of the Philippines was killed by Chinese pirates, and he was working as a guard in Manila for the government's replacement, when all of a sudden he passed out. When he opened his eyes again, all of a sudden he was in Mexico City. Obviously, nobody believed this story and he was arrested for deserting the army. But a few months later, a ship came bearing news that the governor actually was assassinated, and one of the people on the ship claimed that he saw Perez in the Philippines the day after the governor's assassination.
Whoa, that's trippy. I don't know if I believe it. What
But
do you
someone
think?
saw it.
But someone saw it, so it's true.
Now, my personal theory, it was aliens, green boots.
Thanks.
Every year, about
this
800
one's sad.
people attempt to
I've
climb
heard
to the
about
top of
this
Mount
one.
Everest. Some of them don't make it back. As a matter of fact, Mount Everest is home to about 300 bodies. Man, that's almost as many bodies as your mom. The most famous body on Everest is called Green Boots. The area in which the body is one of the stops you get to before reaching the peak. About 80% of climbers pass by Green Boots on the way to the top.
Why would you climb it then?
I don't know. It's like a feat, like a big accomplishment to do that.
There's other...
And people get like adrenaline rushes and stuff.
Okay, but there's other adrenaline accomplishing things you can do that won't require death.
Yeah, but not everyone dies, so I guess that's the...
That's the goal.
I want to be the one that can climb up there and make it back.
I want to be the one to not die this time.
So who is this guy? Well, in 1996, 8 climbers passed away.
If it was me, my goal would just be to finish a book.
In a massive blizzard.
Not in a long time.
Boots was one of these climbers, although it's not exactly sure which one he was. Monsieur Choukhani was a Jewish teacher who taught some very high-profile students, including French philosopher Emmanuel Levinas and Nobel Prize-winning author Elie Wiesel. This guy was so mysterious that his gravestone reads, "The wise Rabbi Choukhani, blessed memory. His birth and his life are sealed in enigma." Nothing is known about this guy. His real name, where he was born, whether he was an Xbox or PlayStation guy, nothing. The Poe Toaster. Every year on January 19th, the birthday of Edgar Allan Poe, a man visits Poe's grave in the middle of the night and leaves a bottle of cognac and 3 roses before mysteriously disappearing.
That's weird.
The man is said to wear all black with a wide-brimmed hat and a white scarf. Sometimes he would even leave notes like, "Edgar, I haven't forgotten you." Every year people would gather around
like a
to
reincarnation
witness the tradition.
Of him?
No, of like one of his... I remember like Annabelle Lee, you know?
Oh, a character from his book?
Like his love, you know, a reincarnation of his love.
Oh, I don't know. That'd be interesting. Yeah, I have no idea what this character is. I've never heard the story.
I can only find one picture of the guy from who knows when. The tradition goes all the way back to 1930, allegedly, and stopped in 2009 after the 200th.
If it was in 1930, wouldn't that be like 40, 50 years after he died? I think he died in 1880, they said. I don't remember.
The anniversary of Poe's birthday. Shanty Devi was an Indian woman who claims to have remembered her previous life. She claims that in a past life her name was Lugdi Devi and she lived in the city of Mathura with her merchant husband, and that her previous self passed away after giving birth to a son. At the age of 6, she found her past self's husband, and the guy was convinced this was his reincarnated wife. The story got so big that Mahatma Gandhi himself set up a commission to investigate the claims. After questioning her and taking her to the hometown of her previous self, the commission concluded that Shanty Devi was in fact the reincarnation of Lugdi Devi. The Somerton Man. In 1948, the body of a man washed up on Somerton Beach in Australia. The man could not be identified, and the only clue that was found on him was a scrap of paper torn from a book titled Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. The note read Tamam Shud, a Persian phrase which means it's over or it's finished. Now, the man has never been identified, and the autopsy couldn't even find a conclusive cause to his death. It was speculated that he was a spy and he was assassinated, since this was during the height of the Cold War. The Countess Desmond was a noblewoman from Ireland. She was nicknamed the Old Countess Desmond because, well, she was fucking old. No one's sure of her exact age when she died, but it's thought that she was anywhere between 90 and 104.
What the heck? How'd she live so long?
There's no way.
She took her vitamins. Those Flintstone vitamins.
Not to die of diarrhea before your 20th birthday. So living to 90 back then was almost unheard of. Bodhidharma, I probably did not say that right, but whatever, let's just move on, was a Buddhist monk credited with spreading Buddhism to East Asia. According to Chinese legend, he's also the one who basically created Kung Fu at the Shaolin Temple. Despite him being incredibly influential in China, not much is known about him. It's said that he came from the Western land, so he was probably Persian or Indian. Because let's face it, not a lot of East Asians can grow a beard like that. Also, it's not even 100% clear when he arrived in China. This guy is shrouded in mystery and enigma. Akhenaten refers to an ancient Egyptian pharaoh whose existence was unknown until pretty recently. He was probably the father of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, aka King Tut, but Mari wasn't around back then, so it's not confirmed. Now, the interesting thing about Akhenaten is he unsuccessfully tried to start his own religion. That's right, Akhenaten left Egypt's polytheistic religion and founded his own religion known as Atenism, which worshipped the god Aten. This was significant because this was one of the first monotheistic religions ever. He also moved Egypt's capital from Thebes to a brand new city which he built named Akhetaten. Now, Akhenaten Akhenaten was apparently not a popular guy because after his death, Egypt went right back to their old religion and moved the capital back to Thebes. Future pharaohs would also destroy all of his statues and monuments and basically erase him from the history books.
What the heck did he do that was so bad? It just wasn't very cool, I guess. I wonder if anybody still believes in his religion.
Archaeologists discovered his tomb in 1891. Wolf Messing was a self-proclaimed psychic and telepath. Now, you may be thinking, that's weird, but the weirdest thing about this guy, he was Polish. Oh, what? You thought I was going to go a whole video without making a Polish joke? Come on! It was said that he could read minds and manipulate them. He could even predict the future, apparently. His psychic abilities developed early on in life, and in his teen years, he was performing for the circus in Germany. During this time, he made a name for himself. In fact, he was so famous that Albert Einstein and Sigmund Freud visited him in Vienna to inquire about his gifts. Apparently, he blew their socks off during the meeting on some David Blaine shit. Allegedly, during the meeting, Freud gave Messing a mental command to pluck 3 hairs from Einstein's mustache, and Messing carried out the command perfectly with no words needing to be spoken. And those aren't the only celebrities that were interested in his gifts. Apparently, Mahatma Gandhi, Marilyn Monroe, and even Joseph Stalin sought him out.
So everyone who was famous at the time was like, yo, he does really great party tricks. What the heck?
More on that later. Wolf was in Poland when the Nazis invaded, and he made a public prediction that if Hitler made his way east, it would surely mean his death. Did you really need to be a psychic to predict that shit? I'm pretty sure if you have a basic understanding of history. Anyways, this prediction really pissed off Hitler, and it didn't help that Wolf was a Jew. Messing was in Poland during the Nazi invasion, and he was captured by 2 soldiers, but allegedly used his powers to escape. He then ran away to the Soviet Union, where Joseph Stalin himself requested that he be brought to the Kremlin. Stalin was curious of the legendary tales and tested Messing's skills. He gave him a mental order to rob a bank, so Messing headed over to the bank and using the power of suggestion, mind-controlled the teller into giving him a check for 10,000 rubles.
What the heck?
Sorry, 100,000 rubles. That's even more impressive. Anyway, Stalin was amazed, but unfortunately the bank teller was probably sent to a gulag. Edward Keeley was an English occult.
He got away? That's awesome.
Occultist, an alleged spirit medium, meaning he could speak to the dead. And big surprise, he was also an alchemist. How come every weird motherfucker back then was into alchemy, bro? It was like the anime of its day or something. He was known for his relationship with John Dee, another occultist slash alchemist who also happened to be Queen Elizabeth's court astronomer and advisor. Dee discovered Keeley when he was looking for somebody that could speak to angels, which Keeley apparently could do with the use of a crystal ball. Edward Keeley spent most of his life traveling around Europe, going to different noble houses where he would provide his services as a medium. Also, I think I should probably mention that Keeley was a known charlatan who was arrested for forgery and counterfeiting.
What the
Sidney
heck?
Gottlieb was a chemist who worked for the CIA. Gottlieb was behind most of the assassination attempts carried out by the CIA in the 50s and 60s. He was also in charge of the government's mind control program known as MK Ultra.
What?
Wow.
Is that true?
I don't know.
Oh, you didn't know this stuff?
Now, if you're not familiar with MK Ultra, I'm not going to get too far into it here, but basically, during the height of the Cold War in the 50s, the US government was incredibly paranoid that the Soviet Union and China were going to take over the world. So to prevent that, they needed every advantage they could get. In the CIA, it was believed that the Soviets had already figured out how to mind control people, so they needed to catch up. That's why they decided to launch Project Artichoke, which was the precursor to
always the
MK
stupidest
Ultra.
name.
Gottlieb was brought...
Project Archer? Was that actually the name?
Every time I hear it, it's like, why did they think it was a good idea? Like,
that's an awesome name.
MK Ultra is so cool, and then Project Artichoke.
I hope the next one's Project Zucchini.
Brought in as the lead researcher, and the main goal of the project was to determine if somebody could be involuntarily made to perform an assassination or any other action for that matter. The secondary goal was finding new interrogation techniques. At this time, they were forcing people to take all sorts of drugs, including cocaine, peyote, mescaline, heroin, and LSD. Sounds like a good time. How do I sign up for that trial? Gottlieb eventually tried LSD himself to test its efficacy. After about 7 hours of watching ancient aliens and tripping balls, he decided this was the way to go. He then started Project MK Ultra with the goal to create a truth serum and to control people's minds. The studies mainly focused on LSD. Apart from MK Ultra, Gottlieb was also behind a bunch of goofy failed assassination attempts against Fidel Castro. Some of these schemes included an exploding conch shell, an exploding cigar, a poisoned pencil, a poisoned wetsuit, and all sorts of other wacky...
What the heck? How did that not make somebody paranoid?
Things. Sidney
Castro paranoid.
Retired from the CIA in 1973, stating that he didn't believe his work there had been effective, or at least that's what he wants you to think. The unknown women of Seine. I don't know how to pronounce anything, man. So you guys are gonna have to get used to this. She was a woman whose face would be hanging on the walls of many artists in the early 1900s. What? Obviously, not her real face, but like a mask of her face. She was known as the drowned Mona Lisa because it was said that the woman whose face it belonged to was discovered drowned in a river.
It reminds me of the CPR dolls. Did you know the CPR dummy things that they use? It's based off of an actual woman that they found, and like
just decided
the face is.
They just decided, hey, this is a good thing to model. This dead person right here, you know what? They're gonna live on in this art form. That's so weird.
So infatuated,
especially if you know nothing about him,
that he decided to make a mask out of her face. The mask was so popular that it was actually used as the model for the very first CPR dolls, and they're still in use today. That's why she's known as the most kissed face of all time. Ching Yuan was a Chinese herbalist and martial artist who was known for his incredibly long life. Yan claimed to have been born in 1736, and he passed away in 1933.
What?
According to my calculations, that's... carry the 3, a long fucking time. He also apparently joined the army at the age of 72. Yan attributed his longevity to subscribing to Dantavis's YouTube channel.
Oh, bet. Good thing we're subscribed.
We should probably test that theory out. Aristias was a Greek poet who was active in 700 BCE. Apparently when he died, his body went missing, and he turned up 240 years later in Rome and commanded that a statue be built of himself. There's not really a lot of information on this guy, but I don't know, man. Who knows if he even existed? The Max Headroom Incident guy. Max Headroom was a fictional character who premiered on British television in 1985. The fictional backstory of this character is that he was the world's first artificial intelligence talk show host. He got pretty popular in the 80s, at one point even appearing on David Letterman, but he's probably most famous for the Max Headroom Incident. In 1987, an unidentified man wearing a Max Headroom mask hijacked 2 separate television broadcasts in Chicago. Despite multiple investigations and a lot of speculation, the hijacker was never caught.
It's so creepy. Imagine just being like home from school that day and you're just watching TV and this pops on out of nowhere while you're in the middle of watching something.
What
like,
is even the point?
Arthur? I don't know. That's the whole thing. We don't know who did it or why they did it. It just happened. That's the scariest part. It's like, we have no clue. What the
Red Pirate Roberts. Now, when you hear that name, you probably think, hey, that's the guy from The Princess Bride. Well, yes, but it's also a real guy. A real guy named Ross Ulbricht, who ran a website known as the Silk Road. If you're unfamiliar with the Silk Road, it was a dark web market where people could buy and sell all sorts of illegal things. Drugs, guns, fake IDs, bootleg Doctor Who DVDs, you name it. The Silk Road ran through Tor, which is a software that redirects your IP address so it can't easily be tracked. And the transactions themselves were carried out using Bitcoin because that leaves no paper trail. So for all you people saying Bitcoin is useless, I bet you feel pretty stupid right now, don't you, huh? Yeah, let's see you try to buy illegal Doctor Who bootlegs with cash. Go ahead and try. See how far you get. Anyways, despite everything Ulbricht built, he was not very smart, and he left a lot of crumbs that helped the government track him down. After only 2 years of operating the Silk Road, he was convicted on charges of money laundering and conspiracy to commit computer hacking. For these charges, he received a double life sentence plus 40 years without the possibility of parole. And worst of all, the prison they sent him to was in Tucson.
Oh my gosh.
Now, Ulbricht was also linked to attempting to hire hitmen to whack people who threatened to reveal his identity.
Oh yeah, I heard that story.
This was never confirmed though. Also,
we gotta watch that video because there's a good video on that.
I feel I should mention he could have taken a plea deal to get just 10 years in prison, but he decided that he could win the case. Again, not very smart. Bela Kiss was not an adult film actress, but he was actually a Hungarian serial killer who whacked at least 24 people, mostly young women, and attempted to pickle their bodies. In 1914, he was drafted into World War I and left his house behind. During this time, the Hungarian army was experiencing gasoline shortages. Kiss's landlord recalled that he had several huge metal drums in his backyard, which Kiss claimed were filled with gasoline.
That's not good.
So the landlord led soldiers to these barrels to confiscate them for the war effort. But when they opened them up, they noticed a horrible smell, and to their shock, there was bodies inside.
Ugh.
Upon searching his house, they found 24 bodies total. He mostly targeted middle-aged women with no families who were looking for marriage. Upon further investigation, police noticed that all of the bodies had 2 puncture marks on their necks and were completely drained of blood. This led to speculation that Kiss was practicing vampirism.
He's trying to be a vampire?
There's another famous serial killer that was like that.
Oh my gosh.
Man, this shit just gets weirder and weirder. After the discovery of the bodies, police immediately sent word to the army to find and arrest Kiss if he was still alive. Eventually, they found out that he was recovering from an injury in a Serbian hospital, but by the time the detective arrived to arrest him, he was already gone.
What?
After his disappearance, there were multiple alleged sightings, but he was never caught. Prahlad Jani was an Indian monk who claimed to have gone 50 years without eating or drinking. According to him, he didn't eat any food or drink any water from 1940 all the way up to his passing away in 2020. In the early 2000s, Johnny was studied by doctors multiple times. In the first study, he was observed for 10 days, and doctors claimed that he didn't poo-poo or pee-pee. Their words, not mine. They also noticed that his weight dropped slightly, but not enough to make a big difference. During the second study, he was monitored around the clock, and researchers placed cameras everywhere to make sure he wasn't sneaking samosas or something. But again, mans went 15 days without eating, drinking, pooping, or peeing, and all the tests came back normal. These studies have been dismissed by the larger scientific community. What the heck did those idiots? Indrid Cold. Again, I talked about this dude on my Cryptid Iceberg, so in the interest of
Bless you.
Thanks.
Hey, no problem. Just doing my job.
Myself some time, I'm just gonna replay that. Or hey, why don't you do yourself a favor, go watch the whole thing. It's only an hour and 14 minutes long.
Oh, bet. That's a long one.
I think I've seen that
similar to Mothman, who's seen around Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Bro, seriously, what is it with West Virginia? Like, remind me to never go there.
Why is there even a West Virginia? Why isn't it just Virginia?
I don't know.
Should all be just one Virginia. It's time to unify the Virginias.
Yeah, but what about North and South Carolina?
It's time to unify all the Carolinas and Dakotas. We're going to reduce the number of states.
Known as the Smiling Man because he was described as having a permanent smile along with the ability to communicate telepathically. Here's a sketch of what he supposedly looked like. This guy was kind of overshadowed by Mothman since both of them were around the same place at the same time, and Mothman was covered much more by the media. The most notable account of Cold was by a man named Woodrow Derenberger, who gave an entire 30-minute interview about his experience with him. Here's a little snippet.
What I saw last night, I know that I saw it. It was no figment of imagination. It was there, and I was there. And
now, you said that he also made the statement that we will see you again.
When he was getting ready to leave, he stepped back from the truck about one step. Then he said, Mr. Derenberger, we will see you again. He didn't say I, he said we.
All right, let me give you a breakdown of the entire discussion. Woodrow claims that he witnessed an aircraft that was hovering about 12 inches off the road, and it suddenly pulled up in front of him, and a door opened to the craft, and then a being exited the ship. The vehicle then flew up 50 feet in the air.
What do you say about this mystery?
And the being walked up right next to Derenberger's truck window and told him to roll it down. Derenberger described the being as looking like an ordinary man, 6 feet tall, about 35 years old.
Can you look up Smiley?
A glossy metallic.
Smiley? Why?
I think that's another thing that's scary.
Oh, I don't want to be scared. I hate being scared.
Maybe that's not.
Oh my god, this is terrifying. I'm scared.
No.
I'm shivering. I just peed my pants.
That one.
Is this a movie?
Yeah.
I've never seen this.
It's scary looking. I've never seen it. I just know the picture because unfortunately Shane Dawson was in it.
Oh no. Alright, I guess that's a good reason not to watch it then.
But it's scary.
It's got really low ratings. Jeez Louise, even Rotten Tomatoes is like, yeah, no, this movie's garbage.
Like dark blue coat. My man's fashion was truly out of this world. The man spoke to Woodrow telepathically. His mouth did not move. Instead, he had a fixed smile on his face. And the man told him, roll down your window. I want to talk to you. During their discussion, the man called himself Indrid Cold. He told Woodrow that he meant him no harm. Derenberger went on to say, "I was very frightened, and as far as I can understand, this was all mental. There were no spoken words from him. I know what he was asking me, but yet he stood there and his mouth did not move. He had a smile on his face and he appeared very courteous and friendly." Dang, man, tell that to the guy who's doing the sketches. Yeah, this motherfucker does not look courteous or friendly. Indrid Cold and Mr. Derenberger's conversation lasted about 10 minutes. Before returning to his flying craft, he said, "We will see you again." There were other sightings with various descriptions, but this was by far the most in-depth. The Mante Tribe is a primitive and elusive tribe that supposedly lives deep in the jungles of Indonesia. Modern Indonesians believe that they are descended from this tribe and that it still exists, living like they used to live back in the day. Speculation that this tribe still exists was fueled by this video taken in Sumatra back in 2017.
This is the dude walking.
Did you see the guy across?
No, there's a guy across.
Yeah, there was a guy crossing.
Oh, crossing?
Mm-hmm.
And for the Russian mafia in the 90s. He was a police officer for 6 months before getting fired. A few years later, he was charged for doing something that rhymes with drape and sentenced to 8 years in prison. The day before he was supposed to get locked up, he went on the run and was caught months later. While in prison, some of the inmates found out that he was a cop, so they marked him for death. He was attacked by 12 people but managed to defeat them all. And after that, nobody messed with him again. After 2 years in prison, he escaped again, went back home and joined the Russian mob as an assassin. And let me tell you, this guy was good. He was like the Russian John Wick. He assassinated multiple mob bosses, and according to stories, he shot a dude in a crowded nightclub while he was surrounded by security guards. By this point, he was a legend in the underworld, and law enforcement tried and failed to arrest him multiple times. On one occasion, he actually was arrested, but the police didn't search him well enough, so he shot multiple cops inside the police station before he ran off and finally got cornered and sent to prison again. But one thing you gotta know about our boy Alex, you can't keep him locked up for long, so he escaped with the help of a crooked corrections officer. After his second prison escape, he ran away to Greece, where he eventually started his own organized crime ring. He had around 50 men under his command who specialized in drug smuggling and contract whackings. While he was in Greece, he was stupid rich and bought several villas in Athens. After a while of being on top, Salonik was whacked by another Russian hitman, also named Alexander, inside one of his villas in 1977. Edward Mordray
sounds like the type of guy they would make a movie out of.
Was a man born in the 19th century who apparently had a face on the back of his head.
Voldemort.
According to stories, the face would whisper, grab objects, and even laugh. Mordray begged doctors to remove it because it was driving him mad.
It reminds me of the movie we watched, Malignant.
Oh yeah, it was so stupid.
Sadly, at the age of 23, Mordray would unalive himself. The first
known
known description of Mordray was written in an 1895 Boston Post article by fiction author Charles Hildreth. Really, a fiction author? Next. The Queen of Sheba is a woman mentioned in the Hebrew Bible. She brought a caravan of valuable gifts from her homeland to King Solomon of Israel. Now, King Solomon was known to be the wisest man alive, so when the queen arrived, naturally she tested his knowledge with questions and riddles. Now, scholars aren't exactly sure where Sheba is, but it's generally thought that it's either in Arabia or Ethiopia. Different cultures have completely different stories about who she was. In Arabic tradition, she was from the kingdom of Saba in modern-day Yemen. In Ethiopia, however, the Queen of Sheba is a huge part of their culture. According to them, the Queen of Sheba became pregnant by Solomon and gave birth to a son named Menelik. Menelik one day traveled to Israel to meet his father Solomon, and when he returned to Ethiopia, he brought the Ark of the Covenant back with him. They believe the Ark is in Ethiopia to this very day, and Menelik was the first ruler in a dynasty that lasted up until the 20th century. King Koloksai. The Scythians were a group of ancient tribes who inhabited most of Central Asia. It's thought that King Koloksai united the tribes and founded a dynasty that lasted around 200 years. And apparently he smoked weed, man. Ganja, grass, pot. Seriously,
like
I found this article on wayofleaf.com.
Does that what?
Sounds like my type of guy.
Oh my gosh.
Alleging that the Scythians
Your type of guy is a tribe leader who smokes weed?
Yeah.
That's some interesting standards.
But you can't believe anything stoners say, man. Anyway, King Koloksai, truly mysterious because I could barely find any information on him. Adam Rayner was the only person in all of recorded history to be both a dwarf and a giant. At the age of 18, he measured in at 4 feet tall, legally a dwarf. By the time he was in his 30s, he reached a height of 7'2".
Whoa.
So how did this man go from sitting in a high chair to playing center for the Knicks? Well, it was due to a tumor in his pituitary gland, which is the most common cause of gigantism. It's just weird that it happened so late in life. Sergey Tretiakov was a Russian intelligence officer who defected to the United States in 2000.
What?
Tretiakov, Sergey was a KGB spy posing as a UN diplomat in New York. But no, he wasn't, because he was a double agent, passing secrets from the Kremlin to Washington. Tretiakov, you sly son of a gun. He defected to the United States in 2000 after the passing of his mother. He waited for that because now the Russians couldn't use her to bring him back. After his defection, the CIA gave him a new name and settled him in an unknown location with his family. Oh, and they gave him $2 million. That's pretty cool.
What, is this story real though? Because then how would we know this?
In 2008, he started doing interviews for an upcoming
Oh.
book he
there
had
you
coming
go.
out about his life titled Comrade J, The Untold Secrets of Russia's Master Spy in America After the End of the Cold War. Okay, first of all, that title's way too fucking long. And second
is
of
a long
all,
title.
my hat keeps riding up my head. Anyways, this book spilled all sorts of tea about the KGB, including the mass disinformation and propaganda campaigns they would run. And this was all the way back in 2008. And sadly, Sergey would pass away 2 years after his book dropped. The timing of his passing was suspicious, and some people suggest that foul play was involved. Well, guys,
Sounds
if you
like
stuck
it.
around this far, I thank you. That was the mysterious and enigmatic people iceberg. As always, let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, and also, I'm on social media, you know? I'm on Twitter. I sometimes tweet funny stuff, and I even have a Discord.
Yes, like and subscribe to Dantavius. This is his channel.
There's two
How you
people
spell it?
that I was one person and then two kind of people that I was thinking of that he didn't talk about.
Which were who?
One is do you know the movie Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks?
I know of it, but I've never seen it. What about it?
So that guy that the movie's based on, he lived his whole life. He lived his whole life like pretending to be a doctor, a lawyer, a pilot.
Mm-hmm. So
And,
he's just like a con man or something?
Yeah, but there's like contradictions about like his childhood and like what I don't know, how he actually grew up and who he was, because he always just changed his identity just like to get money.
So this is one
And there's like
real guy that you wanted them to cover?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's like speculation about if he even did like any of the things he said.
So he's just the guy saying he can do this stuff but didn't actually.
And then also I was thinking of I think they're black-eyed children.
Black-eyed children?
I think that's what they're called.
Okay.
They're like children that people have seen but don't know if they're real, because it's kind of like they appear
like this?
Yeah, they kind of like appear at your house and like
at my house?
Yeah, like in the middle of the night they'll appear and like they'll knock on the door.
What?
Yeah.
Oh man, they're not allowed in our house. No, think you'd rather sleep peacefully.
But like no one knows if like they're actually, you know, like children. They could be like aliens or something.
Aliens? That'd be a twist. That'd be freaking epic, as long as they're Jar Jar Binks. All right, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching, and we hope to see you guys next time. Peace.